Cave diving, your greatest fears rolled into one extreme hobby. When Grant Pierce speaks of the things that excite a cave diver, he is also listing what for many people are their darkest fears and phobias. By Rick Eves. Chapter 1, Into the Void. Grant Pierce and Ken Smith diving the beautiful Warbler Cave. For a cave diver, it does not get any better than swimming into a black void that nobody has experienced, mapping and surveying as the first person on the planet to be there. I guess it would be most people's worst nightmare. For me, it's about the geomorphology, or how the caves are formed. It's the exploration that I love dearly, cave diver Grant Pierce said. The operations manager at the Cradle Coast Authority in Boerne has been cave diving for 34 years and has traveled widely to pursue his passion for the uncharted depths. The magnificent Bahamas cave holds plenty of secrets worth exploring. His passion for geomorphology comes from a science background and from a stint studying the cave-rich hydrogeology of the Mount Gambier area in South Australia. He and his colleagues pride themselves on meticulous organization, expedition planning, and safety protocols. But on the few occasions where it goes wrong, divers have been tragically lost, underwater or underground, with limited air supply. Exploration isn't for even a lot of the cave diving community. Most cave divers see that as being quite extreme, Mr. Pierce said. If there's a hole in a paddock somewhere and it looks like a cave with some water into it, I'm usually one of the first people down there to explore the underwater passages that are down there. On many occasions, I've been the first person to explore a piece of passage that no one has ever seen before. It would be akin to being the first person on the moon in a lot of ways. Chapter 2, When Things Go Wrong. One of the key safety measures for cave divers is reeling out a guideline as they go so they can follow the line back out. Exploration divers like Mr. Pierce also have the line knotted every 5 meters to assist in mapping distances. Many divers use rebreather units, enable them to recirculate exhaled air mixed with a little oxygen, enabling them to stay underwater for up to 8 hours. Scuba tanks and breathing apparatus are typically used as backup supply, carried on the first part of the journey and left along the way to be retrieved. A diver using rebreather apparatus as he explores the wonders deep within the ocean. Despite the careful planning, things sometimes still go wrong. I lost contact with the guideline, and as soon as I stopped, the silt built up around me so I couldn't see the line, Mr. Pierce said, recalling his own most frightening episode. That's where my training kicked in, where I had a thing called a jump line, just a miniature guide reel. I tied that off to a rock and did a search and recovery for the guideline I had lost. I found that, tied onto it, in that way I could get myself back onto the line and work my way back out. A very rare moment in 34 years of cave diving where something like that occurred. Chapter 3. Sticking to the rules is vital. Cave divers have a golden rule of thirds. You use a third of the air going into the cave, a third of the air coming back out, and the other third for emergency purposes or for a dive buddy. Your chances of running out of air during a cave dive are very remote, Mr. Pierce said. Unfortunately, I've been involved with pulling out the bodies of 3 friends who have died in Mount Gambier over the years. Divers inspect spectacular flowstone during a Bahamas cave dive. There were various aspects with each of those cases where the rules were broken, and unfortunately they paid the ultimate price for that. Mr. Pierce gets a little choked from remembering 2011, where members of the cave diving fraternity worked with police to retrieve the body of Agnes Miliwaka from within Tank Cave near Millicent in South Australia. Miss Miliwaka, an accomplished diver, had lost contact with her dive partner and became lost in stirred-up silt conditions, eventually running out of air. It took us a week to retrieve her body, unfortunately, and it would be fair to say it had us all questioning why we do this sport, Mr. Pierce said. Grant Pierce navigates a tight squeeze in order to explore new territory inside the Warbler Cave. An important part of a cave diver's technique is minimizing the disturbance of silt on the cave floor and in tight squeezed passages. The divers learn how to minimize their fin kick and tanks and other equipment, like the rebreather units, and often side-mounted to reduce the profile of the diver. There have been quite a few occasions where you'll be swimming through a tunnel that could swallow a 2-story building, only to narrow to a tunnel about the size of your body, Mr. Pierce said. On the other side, you often find another kilometer of passage that maybe no one's seen before. That's exciting when that occurs. Chapter 4. Top Dives in Australia. The iconic place for cave diving exploration in Australia is Olwgen Cave under the Nullarbor Plain. Mr. Pierce has been one of a number of divers exploring its extent over the past 4 years. It was adjacent to a cave we were diving, and a colleague of mine discovered the first few hundred meters of it, he said. I've been fortunate enough to be involved with helping to discover the other 11 kilometers of that, which is quite extraordinary in itself. It takes around 3 hours out and the same to get back, so it's quite a long time underwater. The premier cave diving experience in Tasmania is the Junee Resurgence Cave near Maydena. The water can be as cool as 6 or 7 degrees Celsius, necessitating dry suits for warmth. Divers enter a well-decorated cavern in a Bahamas island cave. It would be one chilling layer of discomfort too many for most people, but for divers like Mr. Pierce, the special features of Junee Resurgence are worth the discomfort. It has 2 sumps with some streamways, and the streamways are quite heavily decorated, Mr. Pierce said. There are fine straws that hang from the ceilings, flowstone formations that are so pure and clear that they look like ice. It's amazing to see. You can put your torch behind it and see right through it. Despite the potential dangers of cave diving, Mr. Pierce said he would not be concerned if either of his children decided it was something they wanted to do. My wife Lynn used to cave dive with me before the kids were born. Both of our kids I taught to dive, not cave diving as much as they'd like to. They're both avid scuba divers, Mr. Pierce said. It wouldn't bother me at all if they wanted to dive in caves. They're quite level-headed people and they have a thirst for adventure. So I hope they continue that on into their adult lives as well.